Okay, good morning. Thank you for coming. We're going to have a full room. There's still quite a few people, especially some speakers, who are going to join us a bit later, but thanks for making it early. So we've got an almost on-time start. And along with Dr. John Bickey of MasterCard, I want to welcome you all to Columbia University to our very first cybersecurity event, hopefully the first of many. We've done a lot of collaboration with MasterCard in the past, but we're going to be concentrating on cybersecurity at Columbia University, hopefully for the next few years. And I think the interest in this group, I think there's a lot of real hardcore cybersecurity experts here. Characterize it as that, that's great. It's a growing testimony to the recognition of the cyber threats we face, whether it's using our phones, voting machines, critical infrastructure, secret pens in the situation room, our financial security, and the like. So before I get going, let me just give you a brief outline of the Digital Financial Services Observatory, under which this is co-organized with MasterCard. I'm the head of the DFSO. It concentrates on the business and policy of digital finance. A need was identified globally a few years ago for a dedicated legal policy institute on digital finance, and it's housed at the Columbia Institute for Ubiquitous Information in the business school, headed by Professor Eddie Noam, who can't be here unfortunately today. And we funded through a grant by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. I want to recognize Chris Deborah, he's a program officer from the foundation. Thank you very much for your ongoing support of our initiative. And as I said, we're planning a very large cybersecurity focus for the next 2 years. So here are the sessions today. I'm going to introduce shortly Deborah Snyder, CITI of New York State. Then we're going to have a session on sort of 60,000-foot view of the global threat matrix. Then a cybersecurity and telecoms and infrastructure and mobile payment session. Then policy, legal, and regulatory aspects of cybersecurity. And then we're going to give a window into the latest innovations and startups in the cybersecurity innovators panel, and then the closing remarks by Howard Wolf himself out here. So, oops. There, you got here. That was the slide. So, before I hand over to Deborah, I just want to also thank those who've traveled from far, especially Deborah. We got up real early from...
Might win. 2 o'clock this morning.
Well, 2 o'clock, okay. That's committed. Thank you. And sorry about the hot weather. Nothing I can do, but we'll try to decrease the temperature in the room. Other folks who came from down south, DC, Virginia, and Dave Matson from Canada, thank you for making the journey. And to David True, who's not here yet, he helped us with the organization, and also to our moderators, Deborah, Eagle, and David, and John, who will be moderating later. So I'm going to hand over quickly to John, and then I'll introduce Deb.
All right, thanks, Leon. So MasterCard is really proud to partner with the DFSO, the Columbia Business School, for today's roundtable. Security is one of the greatest challenges facing governments and businesses today, with serious implications for national security, financial stability, and consumer protection. This is not an advertisement, but security is a top priority for MasterCard. Over the past 3 years, we spent over $1 billion reinforcing our networks and assuring security in the solutions that we provide to our participants in the payments ecosystem. I want to briefly thank, as Leon did, all the panelists and moderators, especially the ones that I asked to come here today. It's great to phone a friend and have them show up. I know everyone's really busy, so I really appreciate your time, not just for the panelists and moderators, but for everyone else who came here today. And I look forward to the discussions. Thank you.
Yeah, again, thanks to John and his team, Ravi Arora, and those from MasterCard who came today to be speaking later. So I want to introduce Deborah Snyder, who needs no introduction from many of you in the room, but just briefly, a full bio is here. Deborah serves as the CISO for New York State in the Office of Information Technology Services. In her role, she oversees the Enterprise Information Security Office and directs a comprehensive program of governance, risk management, compliance, functions, vulnerability management, threat intelligence, cyber incident response, and training, and exercise services. That keeps you busy, right? And for that, Deb has won a number of awards, and we're very proud to have you here. Thank you so much again for getting up early.
So if I fall asleep at the podium, just throw something. And did everybody check their secret pens at the door?
Leon, did you want to say something about Chatham House rules?
Sorry?
Did you want to say-
Chatham, yeah. So we have Chatham House rules, so please, if you could just leave your pens at the door. Okay.
I already tweeted about it. No, I'm just, I did. So if that's against the rules, I won't do it anymore. But I wanted to acknowledge the great thing that you're doing here, and thank you for the invitation to be with you here today. A little bit about myself. So you're going to notice an absence of tech speak. I am not the technician in the room. All praise and glory to those who are. I depend on you to give us guidance, but I'm not that. I started my career as a BA with no cyber essence at all, or criminal justice and psychology. So I understand why people do the bad things that they do. I get that. And then went on to get a master's degree. I teach. I'm an adjunct professor at 3 or 4 universities. I bop around because I don't want anybody to think I'm favoring them in my current state position. And in addition to that, went to the trenches as a public servant. Served in the counties for a while, director of child support, director of child protective services. Went to the state full of vim and vigor as a 20-something, ready to change the world. It hasn't exhausted me yet. That's good. Wrote legislation and overhauled some massive programs like Medicaid and child protective services for a while. Was the voice behind the pen. Got some good things published. And then as performance punishment, they said, here, you wrote it, you implement it. So you get to massage the program and the systems that support the program into that good gain in terms of public service. And somewhere along the line, because good government is supported by technology, I stepped over that line and I never came back from it. So all things aside, it's been a crazy, wonderful ride, and here I am in cyber. So you might think that I'm going to talk about cybersecurity ad nauseum, and everybody in the room would be so bored with that, so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to talk about some trends, and I'm going to say that the knowledge of cybersecurity threats is simply table stakes, right? So in terms of the nature of what we do, there just simply in this day and age is no business in which cyber is not integrated at its core. There's no business in which technology is not part of the framing of that business, and therefore cyber has to be integrated. So I'm going to talk about some of the things that are happening. I'm going to talk about some of the trends that you need to pay attention to, because I think as cyber practitioners, we are head down, keyboard cracking on a daily basis, watching what's on our radar, literally and figuratively, right? What we are not doing is looking at the horizon sufficiently enough. What we are not doing is future-proofing ourselves. The future's here. It's upon us. So I'm going to talk about those things that we are not paying attention to. So I will pause for one moment and talk about my favorite example of the volume, velocity, and sophistication issue. Right? So WannaCry, May 2017, nobody escaped that one, right? 4 days, 150 counties, 400,000 devices, 200,000 victims, 98% of which exploited unpatched, older, unpatchable systems, Windows systems specifically, and encrypted files, demanded Bitcoin ransom, and wreaked havoc globally. So how did that sneak up on us, given that that patch or that update was 91 days available in advance and didn't get applied? Because we don't learn from past mistakes, and hackers are lazy and they live off the land. And what I mean by that is they basically farm our unprotected systems. They look for the low-hanging fruit and they get in and compromise those systems. So it shut down factories, manufacturing, shipping, physical systems, hospitals, government. No one was exempt. No one got out. Losses, costs, and productivity. Revenue, remediation, recovery in the billions. In the billions. And some never recovered. Right? So some cyber losses are truly unrecoverable expenses from a business posture. So for the MEAs in the room, that's like unconscionable. What's the bottom line? Right? Not putting your stakeholders in a position where you lose money. That's definitely not it, right? So let's talk a little bit about economic impact. The picture says it all, right? The global cost of cybercrime is astronomical. The loss of confidential data, IP, financial crimes, online fraud, the cost of securing systems themselves up front, protecting what you can, of buying cyber insurance to protect what you can't, of recovering from incidents, of reputational damage and business loss, loss of public trust in the government sense, personal and corporate liability in some senses of that word because of the duty to manage from a fiduciary responsibility perspective. And so what is driving all of that? That's what I want to talk about. Now this isn't a new concept. Everybody says cloud services, and I love when they do this, right? Whenever you talk about cloud, watch, you'll never look at somebody again that says cloud and not observe this. They always go, cloud services. And they look up like it's up there somewhere. It's hysterical. I swear to God, if you don't see it in the next 24 hours, call me and let me know, because it's everywhere. Everyone that talks about cloud is like, oh, cloud services, yes, we're moving to the cloud. In any event, it's not new, but it has shifted very quickly to create a whole new set of technologies that have emerged, and at a rapid pace, just an enormously rapid pace. Things like containerization of applications, microservices, right? The APIs on steroids, if you will. Rapid development and deployment cycles, blockchain usage, which organizations quickly grab up, the new shiny, and adopt, and often for very good business reasons, but without consideration of the enormous risk that could be involved if you do not do it right. And that's where we come in. Protecting data, managing your risk exposure, dependency on third-party services, right? When you go to the cloud, you are depending on third party. Good, bad, or indifferent. If you don't like the service, you've got a contract that you can use to beat them over the head, not somebody you can go to and talk to that administers your systems or deals with your legal constraints, but rather the I's and T's that may or may not have been properly crossed and addressed in the contract you have. So if you don't like it, how hard is it to back your data out of the cloud? Not as easy as you think. So almost everybody ends up with something of a hybrid, right? Stuff we keep here because we're too afraid to put it up there, and stuff we put up there because it's just too cost effective to deny it, right? Or it's just a good idea from a business perspective. But often it's very, very quickly done, not completely thought through, and it's a totally different ballgame. And I don't think business or technologists have shifted to that mindset. We get the job done, but we don't think about the consequences often. So next up, in my rant, ubiquitous computing, right? So pervasive, any device, anywhere, anytime, any format. That's what they want. That's what our customers want, right? The constituents demand it. They want their data anywhere, anytime, middle of the night. They want to be able to buy things, transact things themselves without our assistance. All good. Reduces the cost of business down. And processes in that physical realm are being transformed and instrumented in new and innovative ways at an incredible pace. Again, making them interconnected, intelligent, and generating new data sets, which we use for new uses, and new risks evolving from that. What to collect, who can use it, what can it be used for, how do we protect it? Because the game has changed. A good example of this, one of my favorite examples of this, is the technology project known as the Governor Mario and Cuomo Bridge, or the Tappan Zee for those locals. You call it what you will, but it is the biggest technology project ever built. It is the most technology-instituted, instrumented bridge in the world. There are an incredible number of sensors. There are an incredible number of systems, security, traffic control, smart signs. You can tell whether the bridge is swaying. You can tell the tensile strength of the cable. You can tell the lapping of the waves against the base. You can turn it 6 colors to Sunday. It is an incredible technology project. The biggest system is the structural health monitoring system. No longer do we have to worry about structural defects or structural concerns. It is 24/7, 365 inspecting itself and reporting those inspections up to the Department of Transportation on the fly. If they do need to take a look at something, they send a drone down over the edge, or they have a camera that's built into the bridge mechanics that focuses on it. It's feeding us information constantly in all kinds of different subsystems. In addition to that, the transportation that flows over it leverages another 22 systems that control speed, location, how many cars, how many walkers, you name it, we know it. So what do we do with all that data? How do we make sense of that? How do we use it to drive decisions about traffic flows and patterns and diversions when there's accidents and so on? All driven by sensors, all driven by little smart technology components that feed data back to the mothership. The coolest technology project of recent, anyways. I think I was less impressed by putting man on the moon because I was a child at the time. But this is incredible technology and incredible speed. And when it's finished lighting it up, any color of the rainbow. So is anybody familiar with color theory? Right? So if a ship's approaching this and it's turned red, might that signal? Do you have to have loud blaring horns and lots of communication, or might that just tell me, hey, hang back, there's something going on, if it's flashing red? Right? So it can be used in lots of different ways, not just to make it pretty, not just to make it Christmas or New Year's or whatever, but to make it signal-oriented. So I just think it's cool, and I include it as just an example of what can be done with sensor technology, which is everywhere. So let's talk about data, the new oil. Right? Everybody knows in cybersecurity that data protection is like the fundamental purpose of, one of the fundamental purposes of why we're alive, right? But data is, as they say, the new oil. And I don't mean it's, free for commoditized mining and so on. What I mean is the concept that British mathematician Clive Humbley kind of got as the first person who stated this, that data needs processing, like oil. It needs to be refined before it's usable. Unlike oil, it's reusable, right? It's a renewable resource, and you can use it for its original purpose and 16 other purposes down the road, which may or may not be good uses. Information powers business. We all know that. Data is a valuable commodity, and many different uses across many different applications come to mind as you gather it. In terms of leveraging it, it will and is changing the way that we do business. Core to transformative technologies we see today, artificial intelligence, information automation, and advanced predictive analytics. You can, in fact, forecast the future. And that's a good thing. It's a good thing in any business, right? Whether it's protecting a bridge or forecasting retail sales or predicting the trends that citizens want in government. Data becomes more useful once it's processed. It often reveals further uses. A good example of that would be the medical data that's collected on individual patients and then used to diagnose and treat diseases writ large, and then aggregated and hopefully anonymized, right? And used for research in biomedical and medicine. And so the global benefit of a single human being's practical data set aggregated from a diagnostic perspective becomes a whole different value level. As we instrument and digitize from a physical sensibility, IoT, sensor-based technologies, we are exponentially increasing the places and ways that data can live, and in doing so, we're changing the way that we are living and working. We're generating value and ability to benefit society writ large through social innovation. We're accelerating our ability to take on grand-scale challenges because we are able to see into the data and determine what it means to us. So things like improving education and healthcare. Who doesn't want better education and healthcare, right? Those are social good. Reducing hunger and poverty, anticipating cyber attacks, thwarting terrorism, reducing risk, and reversing climate change become possible because we can see inside the global big data that's now available to us, and we can collect current real-time data to augment our understanding of what we know historically. Big data, particularly in mass quantities that it's available today, is a commodity, right? I mean, people actually market it, sell it, aggregate it, broker it, sell it back to you in some cases, which slays me, right? Yeah, please take my data, manipulate it, and then sell it back to me. I try not to get ourselves into that particular circuitous expenditure, but it does happen. It's driving our digital economy, it's driving digital government, and it's becoming a business differentiator. those who are leading are using their data in creative, innovative, and crazy invested ways. They're using it to make decisions. They're allowing themselves to see the invisible and correlating and predicting the future. The concerns, of course, are that the rules or the lack thereof that govern how it should be used are still evolving. They're not done yet. They're not baked yet. And special skill sets are required to do that deep dive. So accuracy, currency, completeness, comprehensiveness of the data, garbage in, garbage out, is always a concern. Because you're making decisions based on it. Which way to go, what to do, not to do, what to hold back, what to push forward, what levers to pull. The governance of data that's gathered and generated in the digital realm will pose, I think, important challenges for us, not just from a sense of protecting it, but also from a sense of data privacy, security, ethics, transparency, and responsibility. The same rigor and consideration will continue to apply, right, protecting the data. But the uses of it, because it's so ubiquitous and so available and so easy to cull and mash and create and massage and relate it, will just be tremendously difficult to follow, if you will, from a trackability perspective. And I do believe that there'll be litigation that sets case law that helps us instrument things in a more decisive way. But I think we need to pay attention to that now and be very careful about not coloring within the lines, because innovation breaks lines, but making sure that we are thinking about those things as we move forward, as we press forward. So let's talk about AI and as I put it, intelligent automation, right? Because you shouldn't just AI the heck out of everything. It's just crazy. There is some logic to where you should apply it. According to a study by Accenture, we spend around 54% of our time in administrative coordination and control of things, and only about 10% in strategic visioning as to where we should take whatever it is we do. So whatever business we're in, how do we aspire to innovate, do things differently, do different things, produce new products and services when we're wasting so much time on material and inefficient processes? How do we deal with that? That's just waste from a project management perspective, from an organizational behavior and change management perspective. That's waste. That's what it's called, that's what it is. And we need to drive that down, right? The MBAs in the room again are going, yeah, because that affects our bottom line. Our stakeholders are going to be calling us on that, right? What if we could get back some of the time? What if we could get back that 54%? How many of you would want 54% more time? More money too, right? All of us. If you could get some of that time back that we spend on labor-intensive, repetitive processes, manual updates, and remediation, right? Everybody's shaking their heads. Welcome intelligent automation, the new co-worker of the digital age, right? Get comfortable with it, embrace it, say, come on down, robotics and automation, bring it. Technology integration, the business processes that are technology integrated simply allow more things to be automated. Simpler, more efficient processes, reduce costs, increase consistency, and so on. So a couple of examples, automated food testing. Right? Instead of dipping the food testing stick into each sample, just runs down the line and tests very consistently. And then uploads the data from the testing instrument, because you've instrumented it with what? Sensors. Right? All good, all correct, all concise, all consistent, no human hands touch it, no contamination. Assembly line production of food testing, wonderful. Less salmonella probably too. Robots delivering medications in hospitals. How many of you gotten into an elevator and found, hello, or seen one of those? I mean, obviously don't converse with you, but I walked in, I was like, what the heck is that? Is it a camera? Loaded with medications, ready to go to the rooms, dispense, of course, to the nurses that dispense the medication. They don't just hand it out in hallways, but robotically coming from the hospital pharmacy with instructions programmed as to which floors it gets off on, where it goes on those floors to dispense the medication. Probably a couple FTEs saved. Definitely less error, right? Less likely to dispense to the wrong, unless your data's wrong. So therein comes the data protection, integrity, correlation with confidentiality, because you don't want to let loose any data that might be in there as to instrumentation. Another example would be the Da Vinci models, right, that are surgically operating on us with computers. A little scary, a little technology scary, but guess what? If it gets it right and I'm laying on that table, I'm going to want the precision that's programmed into a repeatable process done many times and done the right way. Autonomous delivery vehicles and electronic charging stations that drive up to your car in a parking lot and say, based on my metering, you need a recharge, or that you can dial up and say, please plug me in. Those are great conveniences, are they not? In addition to the fear, and this is the bad thing, of jobs currently performed by humans being ripped away or usurped by machines, and some will be, some should be, frankly, and we'll talk about reskilling in a moment, intelligent automation brings fundamental changes to how business and individuals work. From a security concern perspective, unfettered AI without thought to potential misuse will, not can, will create a hazardous level of risk for us. Proliferation of artificial intelligence technologies will enable new forms of cybercrime, political disruption, even physical attacks because of the integration and the nexus between physical and cyber through sensor-based and AI technologies. AI capabilities can and will be used more widespread and integrated, so we can expect the growing use to also be followed by an expansion of existing threat landscape, introducing new threats, changing the typical characteristic of the threats, and therefore changing the ways in which we protect, defend, and respond to those threats when incidents occur. With every good use comes potential bad uses. There's just nothing that doesn't follow that golden rule, if you will. If we don't consider potential misuse cases, and we don't build security in by intent, the power of the bad actors to use AI to threaten us, to threaten everyday life, increases exponentially. So I'll give you some examples. AI could be used algorithmically to derive soft military targets, or to profile social media users that would be more likely to click on a targeted bait phishing campaign. They could automate the discovery of critical software bugs and rapidly select potential targets to attack for financial crime or any other form of cybercrime. Drones that are used to deliver packages for Amazon, wonderful. Or to deliver medical supplies to foreign countries, third world countries in an easy sense, great, right? Awesome uses. Just as easily could carry explosives and small weaponry called slaughter bots, right? Seriously, there's a name for that, slaughter bots. Automated, hyper-personalized disinformation campaigns that target individual voters with customized to you, served up customized to you lies based on your social profile and your consumption and discussion in social media. Those are all forms of AI usage that could in fact be turned for malicious purposes. Now, just because I'm throwing the caution flag in the field doesn't mean that the sky's falling, doesn't mean you can't go there, shouldn't go there, whatever. I'm not that. I'm a pragmatic lover of technology enablement because it's the right thing to do for business. Remember, I have a business MBA. I spent 25 years of my career in business before I flipped the switch to cyber. There's no doubt that AI is extremely beneficial. Absolutely. There's no doubt that it's already making a difference in the field of cybersecurity. It outperforms humans in real-time massive data collection and analysis threats. It's essential to cyber defense capabilities. Accenture also surveyed police, justice, and intelligence departments worldwide as to the top 3 answers that they consider their biggest challenges. And they said money, well, who doesn't have that? Increased citizen expectations of the need to modernize, right? Better, faster, easier, quicker, give it to me now, where I am, on my device, in my hand. And adopting a proactive, preventative security strategy with these new technologies to ensure safety for individuals and communities. We need to exercise balance and design security and robustness into AI solutions, and we need to vote with our feet. The products that do that should lead the market. And who controls the market? We do. What you buy influences the market, ensuring ethical use as well. The last thing I want to talk about is something that I talk a lot about, is smart cities, smart towns, smart villages, if you will. Rapid urbanization. Smart cities, the stuff of fiction a few years back, right, the Jetsons, now is just good urban planning that essentially incorporates advantages in digital tooling and new thinking around age-old concepts like community and transition and environment and sustainability and governance and transparency. right? Those types of things that we all care about and that influence where we live or don't live, where we move out of if it's not there. Driving smart city initiatives and smart municipality initiatives is this concept of social innovation, the process of developing and deploying effective solutions to challenge and often break and solve systemic social and environmental issues in support of social good. Things like intelligent lighting, digital kiosks, GISs for special event safety, body cams, video surveillance, and the likes, drone for emergency response. I'm here to tell you that if you, how many of you are involved in a municipality smart city project? Your hands should all go up. Do you live somewhere? You do. You are involved in the project that's happening in your neck of the woods, neighborhood, your villages. You have to be. So if you're involved anyways by design, get taken for the ride, why not get involved as professionals and help influence it? You would if it was a new law being passed, or a building being torn down, a historic site being torn down, or maybe a particular type of industry moving into your backyard. So when these initiatives come out, vote with your feet, get involved and influence in them, because that's what makes the difference in terms of social innovation. Yeah. So New York just happens to be the smartest city in the world 3 years in a row, so that's just a little bit of news for you. And if you walk around in New York or you live here, you've seen Link New York City, which is just the coolest thing for people that don't have technology in their homes. Here it is on your street corners. Some people either loved it or hate it, but everybody uses it. The use speaks for itself. Billions of transactions a day on these devices. Billions. Crazy. Cybersecurity challenges. As citizens are instrumented, as we are tracked, I don't have my cell phone, but I'll use somebody's that's here. As we are tracked by the little sensor that we carry on an everyday basis. Some of us have two, right? One for each hand. That way, if we want to confuse Google, we can, go in two different directions. The data use and ownership lines blur. Vulnerable systems and infrastructure become attackable, and we have a wider surface for concern. So essentially, you've got to pay attention. So here's a great example. If 20 minutes of exercise improves your health, something that insurance companies would care about, whose data is this that the bicycles collect on where and who rides? Because you're renting it, right? You're leasing it. They know who's on it. They know you're exercising. If insurance companies wanted to buy that data, would that be okay? I'm not saying it is or it isn't. I'm just saying we need to think about things like that. Whose data is that? When you take my blood, that's my data. What you do with that, I care about, right? From a gene sampling perspective. I don't know if I care about the bicycle. I might care about the Fitbit. I don't know, but we need to think about those things as we're moving forward. Real quick, upskilling. Oh my gosh. So as we change our workforce, business is evolving at warp speed, brick and mortar to online service, voice networks to data networks, people are going to have to be reinvented. As technology shifts, so too must our workforce. And we're responsible for that. Jobs are transitioning. We cannot leave people behind in this time of automation. Some people won't take to it. Now there's that, right? I'm not saying that everybody can jump right in and retrain, but there's got to be some accord to the social good of keeping people employed, right? You'd all agree? Jobs are good? So if new skill sets are there's a cost to that, and generally training gets what? Cannot in this day and age. Specialized skills have to be implemented. Organizations need to recognize that investing in retraining and upskilling probably is cheaper than going out and buying that skill on the common market. So sending people back to school makes sense. And skills required to move the organization forward are invaluable. So I'm just going to close by saying that cybersecurity is a team sport. Your CEO and your board needs to be on board, your policy people, your business owners, legal, finance. Notice I haven't mentioned IT. Yes, they need to be involved as well, but it's not an IT concern, it's a business concern. It has to be integrated across every level and every function in your business. It has to be core to your culture. And I don't say that because that's what I do or teach right at the moment. Remember, I come from the business side of the fence, not the technology side of the fence, which is probably why I'm so passionate about it. For information and cybersecurity to add value, to be seen as more than a utility or cost center, it must understand and demonstrate and align in partnership with the business. You have to map your security strategy to the investments that the business wants to make. You have to help them be the wind beneath their wings to innovate and drive their business where they want to go. You also have to take a fresh look at the things that I talked about today with an eye towards how you secure them and a fresh look at where you are. And what I mean by that in closing, if you take nothing else away, take this away. You have gaps in your current, and I don't use this as a technology term, security defense stack. Gaps are there, absolutely, guaranteed. As we move into new technologies, you leave behind tools that worked yesterday. You must pick up those gaps and run with them, fill in the gaps, come over the top and say, where do we need to be in 3 years? And start strategically moving towards that. Products that are in place, solutions that are in place, are not going to cut it in this day and age of the ubiquitous computing environment that we're in. Containerization, microservices, and ubiquitous use of data. Questions? Was I 30 seconds over? I'm going to get done.
You did well. You did
Thank
well.
you for keeping me on
Do I
time.
have
That part.
I do have a question to ask.
Yes.
Sorry, could you just say who you are? Well, just introduce yourself.
Ellen Riley. I've been recommending actually the economic development workforce for the United States, and then ultimately some other functional channels. And have been a big advocate actually nationally that we need to go at this. So it's nice to see the seminar today. So thank you very much. So yeah, I am interested in the response systems to the cyber situation. So that was one of the key things that, you know, at a citizen level, at a business level, at a, you know, industry level, you know, there are different response systems to that. So I think, you know, I'm hopeful and encouraged by seeing this today that that's one of the aspects that, you know, you're encouraging to evolve. So thank you very much.
It's a great comment. In fact, I think one of the biggest barriers to response is sharing of threat intelligence across sectors.
Right.
There are all kinds of conditional and unconditional barriers, real formal barriers and informal, like I don't know, tell them we had a breach. Right, so sector-specific intel,
Right.
gone are the days that if it affects banking, it doesn't affect, you know, utilities. If it affects utilities, we don't care enough, because who runs without electricity? Anybody? Right? IT doesn't run very well without electricity. Life doesn't run very well without electricity, and if you're from the Northeast, I can give you great examples of how quickly it deteriorates.
Right,
When we
I
have a
think
storm.
the examples are good. It'll be great to get to the tactical,
You bet.
how we're gonna do it between the industry side, the government side, because the misinformation
Yeah,
is just
exactly.
as challenging as.
One source of truth, right?
Right.
One source of truth. The girl can dream.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. Any other questions? And just introduce yourself, please.
Bit of a comment. Al Lane from the banking finance side. Just a comment about New York State really taking the lead in a lot of these areas. From the banking side, people may know that the Department of Financial Services in New York State was one of the early on groups in the country
Led the nation.
to come out with a set of standards and regulations. So I applaud New York State for taking the lead.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you on behalf of the governor. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you. Let's going to be joining another panel later, so let's hold up some questions for that panel.
Save some for
Unless you've
tomorrow.
got a quick compliment.
No, I'm Lorenzo Pupillo from I did the cybersecurity practice at SEPS in Brussels. I'm just here on vacation. I'm also fellow at Columbia, and so I decided to come. No, I want just to make a comment. I think that on this issue of artificial intelligence and cybersecurity, you know, there is a lot of hype, but we have to be very clear. There are some fundamental questions open. Just to give two. One is, artificial intelligence can be used from a defense standpoint, but also symmetrically from an attack standpoint. So there is a debate on who can use better this, but this is something we have to take into account. The second issue is to use better artificial intelligence don't it's based on data. We go back to a traditional issue in cybersecurity, the one on sharing data. If you don't have good quality data, artificial intelligence does not help you. So this is extremely important to take
Absolutely.
into account.
Quality of data, yep, validation of that data that's collected on the fly and served up to you, right, by third parties most likely.
I think there's one last
Oh, yeah.
comment. As a daily commuter over that bridge, thanks a lot. It's a great bridge. But if you could get me to get the data so I can know how to avoid the traffic, that would be really
Oh,
good.
okay, so there's going to be an app for that. Truly, there will be. And it might feed the car, right, in an automated
And as a
sense.
city bike and link users, fantastic.
Thank you. All right.
So what,
Thanks very much.
what I'd like to hear from you, I know you need to be in another panel, but